So, here's the deal. I never thought I'd end up here. I mean, who does? You know how it goes. One moment you're scrolling through old photos of your dog, the next, you're about to throw a party that changes everything. That's what happened to me. And no, I'm not exaggerating. It all started a few months ago, on a Wednesday, when Sarah and I were having one of our usual catch-ups. We were talking about work, our failed attempts at cooking dinner, and how exhausting life had gotten. Then she dropped this bombshell on me. "I'm thinking of hosting a party," she said, her voice light, like it was just another day. But there was something about her tone that piqued my interest. "It'll be something different, you know? You should come." Of course, I'd heard about these different parties. Swing parties. My friends had mentioned them before, but they were always something that seemed like they belonged in someone else's life, not mine. But Sarah wasn't talking about a normal house party. She was talking about something much more. Well, let's say it wasn't your average social gathering. The thing is, I'd never been the type to say no to new experiences. I guess you could say I've always been a bit of an adventurer. Still, when Sarah started describing the vibe of this party, low pressure, free-spirited, no expectations, it sounded so surreal. What kind of people went to these things? What did they do there? I couldn't help but wonder if I was walking into a bizarre movie set. "Just come check it out," Sarah coaxed. "It'll be fun. You'll see. Just no pressure." I don't know why I agreed. Maybe it was the allure of something unknown, or maybe I just wanted to prove to myself that I could handle anything. I couldn't back out now. So I said yes. The night of the party came, and I couldn't shake off the butterflies in my stomach. I tried to convince myself it was just a party. People talk about wild gatherings all the time, right? But nothing could have prepared me for what was about to unfold. I pulled up to Sarah's house, and everything seemed, well, normal. Maybe too normal. The porch light was on, the door wide open, and the unmistakable hum of conversation filtered through the air. I took a deep breath, reminding myself that this was just for fun. Nothing crazy was going to happen, right? But as soon as I stepped inside, the atmosphere hit me like a ton of bricks. It wasn't the usual chaos I expected at parties. No, this was something more intimate. Subtle glances, people talking a little too closely, laughing a little too hard. It wasn't just a party. It was a whole different world. I tried to keep my cool as I made my way to the drink table, but the closer I got to the main room, the more my nerves crept in. There were people dressed in ways that made me question if I was underdressed in my simple black dress. Some of them were chatting, others were. Well, let's just say they were a bit more relaxed about the dress code than I was. Sarah came up behind me, grinning from ear to ear. "You good?" she asked, noticing my unease. "Yeah, just trying to take it all in," I replied, hoping I didn't sound as nervous as I felt. "You'll be fine," she reassured me. "Just follow the flow. No one's judging." The more I looked around, the more I realized that things were definitely not what I expected. People were mingling, but there was this undercurrent of tension in the air. Everyone seemed to be playing some kind of unspoken game, and I wasn't sure I had the rulebook. But I was there. No turning back now. And then it happened. I was standing off to the side, still trying to keep my composure, when Sarah's voice cut through the noise. "Come join us," she said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to stay where I was, sipping my drink and pretending I knew what was going on. But another part of me, the part that had said yes to this in the first place, was already moving toward her. That's when I felt it. The uncomfortable shift in energy. A couple near the corner were looking at me, their gazes heavy with something I couldn't name. Someone brushed past me a little too closely, and I felt my heart skip a beat. Was this really happening? I tried to remind myself that it was just a party, but the vibe was starting to get strange. The more people talked to me, the more I realized this wasn't just about fun and games. There was an intensity, a pressure in the air that I didn't sign up for. And then the worst thing happened. So, there I was, standing in the middle of a room that was beginning to feel smaller and smaller with each passing second. The noise, the laughter, the casual conversations. They were all starting to blend together into a blurry hum that made my skin prickle. I was trying to keep my cool, but my mind was racing. It wasn't like I expected anything wild, but there was something unsettling about the whole vibe. Maybe it was the way everyone seemed so comfortable with each other. I was the outsider, the one trying to figure out if I was in the right place. I took another sip of my drink, hoping it would calm my nerves. But instead it just made everything seem sharper. I could feel the weight of the glances from across the room, those looks that seemed to linger just a little too long. I could feel the tension building, but I didn't know how to navigate it. That's when Sarah came over again, her face glowing like she was in on some inside joke. She placed a hand on my shoulder, giving me a reassuring squeeze. "Relax, you're doing great," she said, her voice low, almost conspiratorial. I smiled back, but inside I wasn't so sure. Something about her tone, the way she said it, felt a little too calculated. Was she really trying to make me feel at ease, or was she just playing the role of the guide? "Yeah, just taking it all in," I managed to say, hoping it sounded convincing. Before she could respond, a man appeared beside us, tall with dark hair and a sharp jawline, like he'd just stepped out of one of those fancy magazines. His smile was warm, but his eyes, not so much. He was the kind of guy who didn't need to speak to make you feel uncomfortable. But he did anyway. "First time?" he asked, his voice smooth like velvet. "Yeah," I replied, trying not to let my unease show. "Just here to observe." "Well, you're in for a treat," he said with a wink, his eyes flicking over to Sarah, who was already engaged in another conversation. "If you're curious, you should take the plunge. No one's judging." That was the second time someone had said that, and it made my heart beat faster. It wasn't the kind of reassurance I was hoping for. I wasn't sure I was ready to dive in, but I was here now, wasn't I? He patted my arm, as if to push me in the direction he thought was best, then disappeared back into the crowd, leaving me standing there feeling more exposed than ever. It was a strange mixture of freedom and pressure all at once. Sarah came back to my side, noticing the change in my expression. She looked at me with a small grin, as if she could see right through me. "You're fine. Just go with it," she whispered, her voice low, almost hypnotic. I didn't know if I wanted to go with it. Part of me felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, looking down at the unknown, and it was terrifying. The more I tried to focus on anything else, the music, the laughter, the soft clinking of glasses, the more the reality of what was happening around me seemed to sink in. The room was slowly filling up with a crowd that felt increasingly more intimate, and I could feel it in my bones. It was the way people started pairing off more quickly, talking a little more closely, the glances shared that seemed to say more than words ever could. Everyone here had a certain look in their eyes, that sense of purpose, like they knew exactly what they were doing. I was just an observer, an outsider, someone who didn't know how to fit into this strange world. Then someone else approached. Another woman this time, tall and blonde, dressed in a sleek satin dress that clung to her body like she had just stepped off a runway. Her smile was wide, almost too wide, and she was looking directly at me as if waiting for me to say something, anything. I didn't know what to say. But before I could think of anything, she leaned in slightly, her perfume heavy in the air. "Are you sure you're just here to watch?" she asked, her voice smooth like she was trying to coax me into something I wasn't ready for. I forced a smile, shaking my head. "Just curious," I said, hoping it didn't sound as hollow as it felt. She raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued. "Curiosity is a good place to start. But don't stay in the shallow end for too long," she said, before turning and walking off into the crowd, leaving me feeling even more out of place. And that was when I realized I wasn't just an observer anymore. Something had shifted, and I wasn't sure what it was or how to handle it. People were walking around me, moving in pairs, in groups, and I could feel it in my chest. This pressure, this sense that everyone here was trying to tell me something I wasn't ready to hear. They weren't judging, but they were expecting something. Maybe it was just me, or maybe it was the way I was standing, the way I was holding onto my drink as if it was a shield. I turned to Sarah again, my mouth dry. "I think I need some air," I said, the words coming out before I even thought them through. Sarah gave me an understanding look, nodding with a reassuring smile. Yeah, take a breather. You'll be fine. I walked out into the cool night air, the sudden change in temperature hitting my skin like a shock. The party behind me seemed to fade a little as I stood there, staring up at the sky. Was I overthinking this? Was I just being dramatic? I didn't know. But the anxiety was still there, sitting heavy in my stomach, gnawing at me. I pulled my jacket tighter around me, trying to steady my breath. It was just a party, right? Nothing to be afraid of. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I wasn't sure how far I was willing to go. As I stood there, lost in my thoughts, I felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I wasn't alone. So, there I was standing outside trying to shake off the feeling that I had just made one of the biggest mistakes of my life. The night air was cool, almost refreshing, but the weight of what was happening inside the house pressed against me like a storm cloud. The sound of laughter, the soft jazz music, and the faint murmur of conversations all drifted outside, reminding me that I wasn't far from the chaos. I stayed out there for a few minutes, unsure of what to do next. My thoughts were spinning, a mix of curiosity and fear. Why had I even agreed to this? Was I trying to prove something? I didn't even know what I was looking for. What was I hoping to find here? Just as I was about to go back inside and figure it all out, I heard footsteps behind me. I froze, instinctively straightening up, but when I turned around, it was Sarah, her wide grin lighting up her face. "You good?" she asked, as if it was just a normal question. Her tone was casual, but her eyes had that glint again. The glint that said she knew something I didn't. "Yeah, just needed some air," I said, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. "I'm not sure about this whole thing." She laughed, the sound low and almost conspiratorial. "You're overthinking it. Everyone here is just looking for something different. No one's here to judge, remember? The whole point is to have fun, let go, and be yourself." I wanted to believe her. I really did. But deep down, something about this felt so far from what I expected. It wasn't about just having fun. It was something more, something I couldn't quite grasp. It felt like stepping into someone else's reality, one where everything was just a little too smooth, a little too easy. But Sarah was my friend, right? She wouldn't lead me astray. "Come on, let's go back inside," she said, looping her arm through mine like she was guiding me back into the lion's den. As we walked back into the house, the atmosphere hit me all over again. The room was fuller now. People were scattered around, some standing in groups, others sitting in small clusters. The air was thick with that same mixture of tension and ease. It wasn't just a party, it was an experiment. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was in the middle of something strange, something that felt like it was both real and surreal at the same time. I tried to blend in, to act like everything was normal, but it felt like I was walking in a dream or maybe a nightmare. I caught snippets of conversations that made no sense, laughter that felt hollow, and glances that lingered too long. It was like everyone else was reading from the same script, and I had missed my cue. Then Sarah nudged me again, this time a little more forcefully. "Hey, I've got a couple of friends I want you to meet. Don't worry, they're harmless. Just go with it." She led me to a small corner of the room where a man and a woman were sitting together, both of them smiling in a way that made me feel even more out of place. The man was tall, well-built, and had that confident energy that made me uncomfortable just by being near him. The woman beside him, on the other hand, had a soft, warm smile that didn't quite match the intensity of her eyes. "Meet Jack and Lisa," Sarah introduced them casually, as if we were all old friends. "They've been around for a while. They know how to show a newbie the ropes." I didn't know what to say. "Nice to meet you," I mumbled, feeling like I was back in high school, meeting new people at the most awkward party ever. Jack smiled, leaning forward slightly. "You're Sarah's friend, right? Sarah always talks about how adventurous you are," he said, his voice low and smooth. It wasn't a compliment. It was a challenge. I swallowed, unsure of how to respond. "I'm not sure I'm as adventurous as Sarah thinks," I said, trying to laugh it off. Lisa, who had been silent until then, suddenly spoke up. It's okay to take your time here. Not everyone's ready to jump in right away, she said with a knowing look, as if she had seen it all before. But you're welcome to explore. There's no rush. Her words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Explore. What did that even mean? I wasn't sure I wanted to find out. As I tried to make sense of everything around me, I felt it again. The pressure, the weight of expectations, the unspoken rules that I wasn't familiar with. Everyone else seemed so comfortable, like they knew exactly what was going on. Meanwhile, I was just trying to keep my composure and not look like the outsider that I felt I was. But as I stood there, frozen in place, I realized something. I wasn't ready for this. I had thought I could handle it, that I could just be a part of the crowd and go with the flow. But everything about this world felt wrong for me. I didn't belong here, not in the way these people did. I looked around, my heart pounding in my chest. Sarah was still chatting away with Jack and Lisa, but I felt more and more like I was on the edge of a cliff, ready to fall. The room felt like it was closing in, and I needed to get out. I didn't even say goodbye. I turned and walked straight out the door, my heart racing as I made my way back into the night. The cool air hit my face, but it didn't calm the storm inside me. What had I just walked into? What kind of party was this? And how had I gotten so deep into something I couldn't control? I stepped out into the night, the chill of the air sharp against my skin. My heart was still racing as I tried to collect myself. The street was quiet, far too quiet. The sounds from the party were a muffled hum behind me, as if the world I had just left was a distant memory. I didn't even know where I was going, but I just needed to get away, to clear my head. My mind was spinning. I kept replaying everything that had happened, every conversation, every glance, and it felt like I had been caught in a whirlwind that I couldn't escape from. How had I ended up here? Why had I agreed to something that felt so foreign to me? I wasn't sure what I was looking for at this party, but now that I was outside it, I realized I wasn't looking for anything at all. I just wanted to feel comfortable again, to find my own rhythm in a world that had suddenly shifted without me. I walked aimlessly down the sidewalk, trying to breathe, trying to think. But then my phone buzzed. It was Sarah, of course. She had probably noticed I was missing by now. "You okay? Come back inside. Everything's fine. It's not too late to join in." I stared at the message for a long moment, the words almost taunting me. It's not too late to join in. How many times had I heard those words tonight, in different forms, from different people? And every time they made me feel more trapped, like I was being pulled into something I couldn't control, something that didn't feel right for me. I didn't respond. I didn't know what to say. Instead, I shoved the phone back into my pocket and kept walking. The quiet of the night was starting to soothe me, and I knew that I needed to leave all of this behind. I wasn't ready for it. Not now, and maybe not ever. I found a bench in a quiet park and sat down, letting the cool air settle over me. For the first time that night, I felt like I could breathe. There was no pressure here. No one was waiting for me to make a decision, to step into a world I wasn't sure I belonged in. I thought about the people inside the house, Sarah, Jack, Lisa, and wondered what they were doing now. Probably still laughing, still playing their games. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, something that didn't sit well with me. It wasn't just the weird energy or the feeling of being an outsider. It was more than that. It was a feeling I couldn't quite name, but it was real. I looked up at the stars, trying to make sense of everything. Maybe I was overthinking it. Maybe this was just another one of those out-of-the-norm experiences that people had. But deep down I knew it wasn't for me. I had crossed a line, and I couldn't erase that feeling. The feeling of stepping into something I couldn't control, of being part of a world that didn't align with who I was. The more I thought about it, the more I realized something important. I didn't need to conform to other people's expectations. I didn't need to prove anything. I could leave this experience behind and move forward without carrying the weight of it. And that, in itself, was a kind of freedom. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight on my shoulders finally lift. I wasn't going to let the pressure of the night follow me. I wasn't going to let anyone's opinions shape my choices. I could walk away with my dignity intact, and that was enough. I stood up from the bench and made my way back to my car, The cold night air no longer feeling like a burden. I was leaving the party behind, leaving that strange world behind. And as I drove home, I realized that sometimes the best decision you can make is to walk away. To trust yourself, even when everyone else is telling you to stay. When I got home, I pulled into the driveway, the house quiet and dark. Felt like I was returning to something solid, something real. No more pressure, no more weird energy. Just me, at peace with my decision. I couldn't erase what happened, but I could move forward. And that's exactly what I was going to do.